Welcome to Voices Randomish, and if you're new here, I'm your host, Eldridge J. Alexander. To all of my subscribers, thank you for continuing to rock with me. The purpose of Voices Randomish channel is to engage in dialogue that will enlighten, inspire, and hopefully uplift you. I started this channel after the loss of my husband 5 years ago to share my thoughts and ideas and feelings. And Voices Randomish is the medium that I use to do that. So I thank you for joining me here tonight and each and every night that you've joined me in the past and hopefully in the future. As always, I'm going to talk about something orthodox from an unorthodox perspective. You know that I always look at everything from a theoretical lens, using one of those theoretical models out there. There's hundreds and hundreds, but usually in the communication realm and in the DEI or diversity and inclusion space, I have quite a few things around stories and things that you can tell, but also how we can look at some of these ambiguous concepts and really make sense of them in our world. I'm presently looking at this book called What If, and it's by Stephen L. Robbins, PhD, and it's short stories that go to spark inclusion and diversity dialogue. So tonight, I really want to talk about a corporate concept that people always talk about, and it's called pivoting. So I want to talk about the power to pivot. So, or in other words, being flexible. So here we go. So in the last video that I did, I talked about how we hold on to items that we no longer need or wear because of sunken cost fallacy, fallacy, which is fictitious in your mind, or the amount of money that you pay for whether or not you hold on to it. And I know some of us probably can relate to some of the sitcom episodes where you see someone is saving their high school outfit, and you like I remember seeing this episode of The Honeymooners where Ralph was saving it. I've seen one where it was Married with Children. I saw it on Cosby's when he was saving his sweater, and Cliff knew he couldn't get in that sweater. So there's some science, but also some reality and psychology behind what I'm saying. So just hang in there for a minute, because fashion are, that's basically the reason why fashion exists, because we are. Okay, so like I said, you've seen those sitcom episodes where somebody is saving their high school sweater or whatever it is, or their suit, their tuxedo from prom, right? They saving it, and then when you really get down to why the person is going to, why they're saving the outfit, is because it represents, like for many of us, our youth, and then some fond memories. And remember, I told you in the last video that not only do we hold on to things because we've invested a lot of time into it, but there's emotion and energy tied up into garments. So we hold on to those garments because of the emotional attachment and the memories that it brings us. In this case, holding on to things because of your youth, but then realizing sometimes that you got to pivot a little bit, right? And what I found out in my 64 and a half years on clothing on earth is that clothing is really a euphemism, or it's something that's a stand-in for life's critical moments, meaning that we use explain the psychology of a specific behavior, right? So this is where the creativity came into play for me, thinking about this dress here, thinking about the metaphor for what I had to do here, and think about creativity, because when I bought this is not a dress. This was a skirt. What happened is it was so long and so overpowering and so overwhelming on me. I got a little frustrated because it was so long, and I thought to myself, what the hell am I doing now? I'm going to send this back. So let me back up here for a moment. The reason why I said this is a metaphor for pivoting, or like an analogy to clothing, is a euphemism. This skirt is standing in. I pivoted for, it's standing in for a lot of other things, right? And what it's standing in for is, most often when a problem arises, we spend time lamenting or whining or asking why something happened. We spend all of this time asking that question, and you spend so much time asking it that you forget to ask, what can we make happen as a result of what has happened that we didn't expect, right? So there's that saying that it's not about what happens in life, but how we respond to it that makes the difference. So in this case, with the skirt, it was like, this skirt is too long. What am I going to do? And so that's what I mean. I had to pivot. I had to think about what's possible and what's not, right? And I had this shirt on yesterday that said, I'm possible, and I posed the was not. And inside me said, clothing can teach us a life lesson, right? Something inside of me said, no, Eldridge, it's more than one way to do something. Look at this skirt. It's like, why don't you just pull it up? And that's exactly what I did. Is I pulled it from about my waist up to right here above my, right under my armpits right there, right? And it became this fabulous garment, and I was so excited. I couldn't wait to style it, and found a jacket in my closet that matched to it and everything. So I thought about this now, and so I had to come on air, and I said I got to go on and talk about for a problem for you, right? You can keep calling it the problem, but it's really the skirt, right? The skirt is the problem, and that's what the euphemism is every time somebody, you have to watch those things, because that's how people get you to change your mind about things or to talk about things, and you don't even know you're saying things about it, like when they throw a euphemism in it. So this, the newest euphemism that people are using, and especially in Florida, is the euphemism woke. And woke has a negative connotation, but it really denotes something else. Woke for me means that I'm alert, right? I don't want to be driving asleep. So for me, somebody who is a boomer born in 1958, I think of woke in one way, but now you have a governor in another state that's trying to use it as a euphemism and as a negative connotation, in that every time somebody hears it, it jars something negative. So that's how a person uses a word as a thing, as a euphemism to stand in it, like those Iraqis, those terrorists, right? And because you put up pictures with certain people doing certain things and having certain things attached to them all the time, every time you hear that word, you get that picture of that certain group of people in your mind. So in this case, every time you hear the word woke, it stands for people who look like me. Because really, that's really what he's saying, is anybody that supports, because you can't use the N word anymore. So now they take a different word. It's a euphemism that stands in for the N word. You got to watch how people are doing these things. So in this case, you can take clothing to teach yourself a life lesson. What can it stand for? What can something start out as and mean one thing, and then if you see it and use it differently and told to use it long enough, how can it change? Because clothing can teach you a life lesson about how, I was saying that I'm asking the question, have you ever purchased a garment whose type originated as one classification and ended up being worn as something else, because this was classified as a skirt and I'm going to end up wearing it as a dress. And this is what I'm saying, is that something originated, this word woke originated as something else to mean something else, and now it's being classified and being shifted as a euphemism for a different group of people, and to stand in to mean something for a word. Now, I know that people take garments all the time and they cut them up and they do different things, because I have this lady that I follow, a good friend out there, Rhythm and Coils, out on TikTok. She takes leggings and cuts them into, creates tops out of them. Whole, she'll leave the bottom the way they are, and then she'll go get a top and she'll cut the bottoms and make a top out of it. So that tells me that clothing can teach us life lessons about, when you buy something that originates as one thing, it can be just like a word pushed to mean something else. So, but what do you do about a garment or a word or a purchase that may not be easily transformed into something else? What do you do? How do you get it to mean what you want it to mean? Because it's not always easy to get shift people's ideology. So if you think about it, the primary purpose for wearing clothing is body protection, right? And clothing is a powerful tool. It's a message laden tool, and it has emotion. It gives us the context for how we are to behave. You think about the different clothing that the different football teams and basketball teams, and what those colors were intended to mean, and how when people wear them in the street, if you're in the wrong place, it can save your life or get you killed. Just think about that. I grew up in the beginnings of the late 50s, early 60s, when clothing colors, red meant something, blue meant something, gold and green meant something, and even to this day, those clothes mean an affiliation with something, right? So like I said, those clothing, it has a lot of function. As in this particular case, you have things that start out one way and then they end up doing something else, just like this skirt. It started out being a skirt and it's going to end up being a dress. And most mornings, when we think about the messages that we want to send to the world about who we are and what we message, it's in our clothing. We either want to show a position of power, We're using our clothing to convey the messages that we may not be able to speak aloud about who our power is and what our educational status is or isn't, or what our class, and all those things are enveloped in those clothing, that devices that you wear. So that's the thing that we have to keep in mind, because the clothes is representing us before we can even open our mouth to say anything. People make a judgment about you before you go in the room, and so you have to remember that that clothing is holding meanings. And I know that oftentimes people don't really think about it, but I think about these things. I mean, really, as I was changing this skirt into a dress, I was thinking about, I wonder how many other things in life we reappropriate just on automatic pilot, because necessity is the mother of invention. You hear oftentimes about how people discovered different cleaning formulas or different ways to do any, all these hacks I see, just all these different things you do with baking soda and hydrogen peroxide, bananas, and things that we never would have thought of, but somebody took a risk because they had a situation that they had never encountered before, and they decide, these are the tools and resources at my disposal. This is what I'm getting ready to do. So the thing to remember for us in this lesson tonight is that there are going to be many times in life that we expect a scenario to go one way and then something happens. And through a clothing fluke, right? Just like many of us, we'll have the opportunity to reflect on other options or opportunities for wearing or doing something different. I had the option to think about a different way to wear a garment, the different way to style, and just like that, when I'm approaching a problem in life, no matter how simple the problem is in the beginning, it can turn out to be complex, but it's always good to know that you can pivot, because when we're faced, we can stop. That pivoting just means to stop and assess your options, because you never know what can happen. And you think about all the times when something didn't go right, not to try those things again, right? If you key in a code or password, or if you turn your master lock a certain way, that combination didn't work, you don't keep just doing it over and over and over. You learn to pivot. So I want to thank you for staying tuned with me tonight. I want you to think about the things in your life, that opportunities where you had to pivot on a dime, right? Where you had to be flexible, malleable, adaptable, which is a characteristic that when you go into corporate America or any situation that you're involved in, it's a valuable attribute or characteristic to possess. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. Please don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. I hope you have a great week. And remember that Voices Randomness is the only channel that asks you, what's your frequency? All right, have a great night, and I'll see you again. Bye.